Now, your dad, of course, Merle Kilgore, the famous Merle Kilgore, Ring of Fire, he wrote that one.
With June Carter, he did.
And Wolverton Mountain, he wrote that one.
My
More
Uncle
and More.
Clifton Clowers.
More and More. Now, he wrote that. Webb Pierce was a big hit.
Yep.
Your dad was 18 when he wrote that one.
That was
Can you
his
imagine
first
that?
#1. You want me to tell you the backstory on that?
Sure.
My dad, now a lot of people think Billy Walker billed himself as the tall Texan, and he did for a while. But before that, my dad had a television show at Shreveport. It was called Merle Kilgore, the Tall Texan. And so the television studio sent him out to have some publicity pictures made, and my mom was the photographer. And of course my dad, you know, he ended up getting a date with Mom. And so the first date, they're riding around, and she says, "Merle, you look a little blue, what's the matter?" He says, "Well, I just broke up with my girlfriend Ginger." And you know how it is when you break up with somebody. And she says, "Merle, just remember this, more and more you'll forget about your blues." He said, "What? More and more? Hey, I got to take you home." She didn't even get dinner out of the deal. He went right home, wrote that song, and a week later, Webb Pierce had it.
At 18 years of age, that's amazing.
First million seller.
So your dad was famous in country music, went on to manage Hank Williams Jr.
Right.
Now, when you came along, what did you want to be in life? What was your goal?
Well, you know, I was born in the country music business. Let me go back a little bit on the Hank Jr. story. My dad had met Hank Williams Sr. by being at a radio station at 5 o'clock in the morning. He knew he was coming there. And back in the day when country music artists would go from place to place, they would go to radio stations and promote their record. And then, by the way, folks were going to be at the Coliseum tonight, be sure to come on out. Basically a way to get a little publicity for the show and sell some tickets. So my dad knew that he was going to be there. And so he got there, and Hank pulled up, and my granddaddy had taken Dad to the station, and Dad said, "Hey man, Mr. Williams, I'm Merle Kilgore. I'm trying to be a country music star myself." Dad was already 6'6" at 16 years old, but he was 14 years old then. So he says, "Hey, the elevator is broken down, and I was just wondering if I could carry your guitar upstairs." He said, "Grab it, Hoss," and that's how they became friends. Don Hems played steel guitar for Hank back then, and I was talking to Don at a steel guitar convention. He says, "You know that story about Hank, your dad carrying Hank's guitar?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Funny thing is, we all rode down on the elevator." That was never broken.
That was just an excuse to get to Hank.
It was.
I want to show you a picture. This was taken about 35 years ago. This is my wife and your dad.
Oh boy, that's cool. Check that out.
Yeah. We'll get a close-up.
What's your wife's name?
Jane. And I took the picture, but I can't find the picture that I had with your dad. But that's
Where
my
was
wife.
this at?
This was at FanFair.
FanFair, yeah, it looks like it.
And we were huge fans of your dad, and we would cheer on Hank Williams Jr. And I would go to the Hank Jr. concerts, and your dad would come out and say, "These are my people."
These are my people.
And then he would sing Mr. Garfield Shot Down Low. Man, I loved that song.
And the gun activists, they wanted that off.
Well, I loved it.
Mr. Garfield, I got to tell you a story about the FanFair thing.
Sure.
You know how this is a pretty typical shot.
That's it.
Where somebody will always, you know, hug the star. Well, my dad had been married about 1 year. They were doing FanFair, and he was married to Judy the last 28 years of his life. But they were doing FanFair, and the girl asked if she could make a picture, you know, and Judy, my stepmother, is taking the picture. And after they take the picture, she reaches over and gives my dad the kiss of his life. And Judy's down with the back of the head on the camera. "Hey, quit kissing my husband."
Well, my wife did not do that.
Oh, okay. But I've said it happens.
Oh, I'm absolutely.
At FanFair.
All right, so he had Wolverton Mountain. That was a huge one. Ring of Fire, of course, the classic. Now, how does Ring of Fire, how does that, the royalties of that, does that help you in life?
Well, sure.
Because, I mean, they don't make them like that.
No, that song is one of country music's most successful in royalties. I'll give you a breakdown. Basically, my dad, Merle Kilgore, and June Carter are credited for writing Ring of Fire, so they split that royalty 50-50. So whatever, the check usually runs about $600,000 a year. So we get
Dang.
still to this day.
Really?
Written in 1963. But anyway, long story short, which is impossible by now. So my stepmother gets half of our royalty checks, and then my two sisters, one of them's passed away, but we still give her sons their portion.
Man, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's
mailbox money.
oh, you're gonna need a big mailbox for that thing. Wow, that's great. Now, we mentioned I was at your dad's grave.
Yeah.
He has maybe the greatest tombstone in the history of tombstones.
It's just weird, isn't it?
It's one of the, I mean, Johnny's is great.
Yeah.
Elvis's is great. There are impressive
Let
tombstones.
me tell you what he's talking about. When you go look at the grave, my dad had all this jewelry, probably $1 million worth of jewelry. He said he never bought any of it. People would just give it to him, you know. Hank Jr. gave him a 5-carat diamond, you know, and it had a big star on it. But if you go to his gravesite, my stepmother Judy decided it'd be a good idea to put his hands with all those rings. And here was this joke. People would always say, "Hey, Merle, how you doing?" He's, "How am I doing? Are you kidding me? Take a look at these," you know. And it was a big joke. But when she put it on there going, "Judy, why did you do that?" You know, 20 years from now, nobody's gonna know what that means. But on the bottom it says, "Here lies the beautiful dreamer." Now my dad named me after Stephen Foster, and that was his favorite songwriter. And so he said, "Be sure to put something on there about Stephen Foster on my grave." So,
Do you know the arrangement of how him and John ended up so close there in the cemetery?
yeah, I could tell you that story too. One day my dad was in the St. Thomas Hospital for 11 months, okay? And I'd go by every morning before I went anywhere to see him, you know. I come in there and this guy was laughing and slapping his hands. You know, and they're leaving the room. And I said, "Dad, who are those two people?" He said, one guy owned the cemetery lot close to Johnny's, and the other guy was the grave guy, you know, the man that can make all the paperwork happen. I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Oh, I just gave him $35,000 for his lot because I wanted to be close to Johnny." So they're buried about 20 feet
Oh
apart.
man, they're right almost next to each
So
other.
that guy felt like he hit the lottery. You know, he paid about $1,200 for it back in the day.
Fantastic. So,
Location is everything.
man, he's got the perfect
And
location.
you know, the tourists do come by every day. I got to tell you a
Absolutely.
quick story. I know we're running short on time, but one day, the first day after, the first Father's Day, okay, that my dad had passed away, and I hadn't been out the graveyard to do a Father's Day thing yet. So I get out there, and I'm starting picking off little, you know, it looks like a big door, if you can imagine this,
Oh, yeah.
with his face engraved on there. And so I'm just kind of picking off the little things that might be in the way, you know. And all of a sudden, I'm talking to Daddy, right? And I'm, "Dad, oh, I miss you, buddy." Then I feel like this. I turn around, it's Kathy Cash, Johnny's
Wow.
daughter. I go, "Oh man, you scared me to death." It's like 7 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to get there early, and she did too.
Merle, you've had such an interesting career. Now, I watched you years ago interviewing the country stars.
Yeah.
And now you're getting interviewed. It's a little different this way, isn't it?
Well, it is, yeah. Usually you ask a question and be quiet. I can't be quiet.
I saw you interviewing Johnny Lee. I wrote Johnny Lee's autobiography.
Yeah, you know what
And-
happened to me on Johnny Lee's? He had that song, "Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places."
Sure.
And I said, "Man, I love that song." Now I'm interviewing him, you know. That was a great song. He said, "Was? It still is a great song." Let me find a hole to dive
That
into.
sounds exactly like Johnny. But anyway, you were a great interviewer, and
Thank you.
you could tell that they knew you, they were comfortable with you, they knew that you could relate to what they were going through and dealing with.
Right.